Hey, welcome to 12 Tone. Today we're going to talk about motifs. Motifs are small, recognizable chunks of melody that recur and transform throughout a composition. They help to give it a sense of overall identity and are often the most memorable parts of a piece. Check this out. Did you notice how this figure seemed to keep cropping up? It's a little different every time, starting on different pitches in different registers and containing different intervals, but you can still recognize it as the same basic shape. That's a motif. There are three main types of motifs. The first is a harmonic motif, which is just a set of chords. These chords can be played with different orchestrations at different tempos and under different melodies, with their recurrence serving as a sort of connection between disparate sections of a composition. But most of the things we generally think of as motifs fall into the latter two categories, melodic and rhythmic. Melodic motifs are a set of notes in a specific order without reference to rhythm, harmony, or diatonic function. In practice, these are rarely strictly defined. More often, they're general melodic shapes which vary based on harmonic considerations and melodic needs. We saw this in our example above. Sometimes we went up a half step, sometimes a whole. It depended on where we were in the scale. Finally, rhythmic motifs are a specific recognizable rhythmic pattern. These can be played with any set of notes over any set of chords. They can utilize any of the rhythmic tricks we've covered, they just need to stand out. And of course, you can also combine these types of motifs. In general, the most recognizable motifs are both melodic and rhythmic. Using both elements together really helps the listener identify the thematic content, but in order to sound so distinctive, they must have to be really complicated, right? Well, no. For instance, here's one of the most famous motifs of all time from Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Yeah, that's it. Pretty basic rhythm, just two different notes, and yet if you've heard the symphony, you know how much he does with it. It's basically all he does for the entire first movement, and if you haven't heard the symphony, go listen to it. Seriously, it's a classic for a reason. Motifs are especially useful in operas, musicals, and film scoring where they can be associated with specific characters. For instance, if I play this, many of you are suddenly thinking about sharks. Why? There's nothing particularly sharky about minor seconds, and yet anyone who's seen Jaws or even just heard the music will instantly recognize that as the shark's theme. In our head, the motif is the character. This usage is called a leitmotif, and they're incredibly powerful. They can even be used to evoke a character's presence without actually showing the character. In Jaws, many of the shark scenes don't include any on-screen shark at all, just the ominous strings. Another interesting way to use these is lyrical motifs, where instead of repeating a piece of melody, you repeat a set of words, often recontextualizing a previous statement. This is, again, especially useful in theatrical settings where this sort of callback can help tie together an entire show. For a great example, look at how many different ways the line look around is used in Hamilton. We haven't talked much about lyrics yet, but maybe we should. If that would interest you, let me know in the comments. Finally, some composers and theorists like to differentiate between motifs and themes. In this sense, the motif is a foreground piece largely in the melody designed to capture the listener's attention and clearly drive home the repetition, whereas a theme sits in the background and may not even be consciously noticed by part of your audience, but its existence provides a subtle sense of depth and connection and gives people little Easter eggs to find in subsequent listenings. And that's motifs. Try the exercises, join our mailing list for scans of all our episodes, feel free to suggest future topics in the comments, and keep on rockin'.